Welcome to CEO Mum, the podcast that explores how women juggle the worlds of both business and motherhood. It's a question that I asked myself when I became pregnant whilst I was at the height of my 10-year career. My career was a huge part of my identity and it wasn't something that I really wanted to stop. I knew I'd have to make certain compromises, but among the sleep deprivation, the constant breastfeeding, and the endless cycle of washing, I really just didn't know how women have the mental or physical capacity to even begin to think about maintaining any sort of career, let alone simply survive. So it's a question that I would think about, especially in those 4 a.m. feeds. How do I do it? How do other women do it? Can you do it all? And that's when I realized I don't have the answer. But there are probably a lot of women that do. So welcome to season 1 of CEO Mum, the podcast where we explore the demanding world of both business and motherhood. I'm your host, Jada Sezer. Katherine Ryan, the Canadian-born comedian, has become one of the most recognisable figures in the UK comedy scene. After relocating to the UK in 2008, she quickly rose to prominence with her sharp, socially aware humour. Her fearless approach to comedy, often addressing topics such as feminism, relationships, and societal norms, has resonated deeply with her audience. But Katherine's talents don't stop at stand-up. She's delivered hit Netflix specials like In Trouble and Glitterum, and even created and starred in her own series, The Duchess, which brilliantly mixes her real-life experiences with her comedic genius. It's so funny. Katherine is also a mum of 3. She's balancing the challenges of motherhood with a successful career, and in this episode, we'll explore how she manages it all, including the practices she uses to stay sane, motivated, and just constantly pushing forward. Katherine shares insights into her setup. We need to know about this. And her support systems, I definitely need to know about this. The ones that enable her to balance work and a family life. She also really honestly shares some unexpected challenges that surprised her and impacted her sense of identity and career. I can relate to that part. So grab your cup of tea and get ready for a very frank and funny conversation. Welcome to episode 1 of CEO Mum. Welcome, Katherine Ryan. How do you do it all? What is the structure of your week? How do you manage 2 under 2?
Yeah.
And a teenager?
Well, I'm lucky because I'm rich. And I think that it's not very British to say that. People really hate when you talk about having money, and they really hate when a woman talks about having her own money. So it's like a mixture of weird Britishness and also misogyny. And that's why I always say it. I go, I'm really rich. And I think that hopefully lifts a little bit of weight off everyday moms. I used to be one of them. I worked in a sales office. I was very financially insecure at the end of the month. I know what it takes to raise a young family living in London or really anywhere right now in an economic crisis. So I have loads of support. I don't have a normal job where I work hours. I'm not on the front lines of the NHS. So I think the first step for me when I talk about how I do it all is recognizing how privileged I am. But that's not to say that doing it all comes without guilt. I think that Western feminism is trying its best and it's great, but is still flawed because they say to us, you can have it all, you can do it all. And then they tip you out of your hospital bed into a cab after just giving birth, or some women have had major abdominal surgery at that point, and you're expected to get back to work and pay taxes. And by the way, you have to look after your babies as well, or will judge you for having help. So I mean, there's a lot of guilt associated with me even getting back to work and doing it all. So I have a stay-at-home husband because I can afford for him to stay home, and I have a nanny because I can afford to have a nanny. Even with that amount of privilege, I'm still not nailing it at all.
Was that something that you spoke to your husband, Bobby, about before you decided to have a family?
Husbands, when they say our parents just did it, what they mean is, in many cases our age, they mean their mother did it. And so without even thinking, they go, what do you mean a nanny? Well, these are things that you've had to consider because you would be the default caregiver if there weren't a nanny. In a lot of families, the woman does take some time off. And in fairness, she's the only one who can breastfeed. Fine, if that's what's happening. And I think we hold on to some of our traditional values, which is why it was weird in my family for Bobby to stay home. But it made the most sense because he just came from Canada and I had more earning power than he did. And he didn't mind that. When I met him, he was 35. He was my high school boyfriend. But when I met him again, he was 35. And he's the only man that I ever met that ever said, oh, I was worried that I'd missed the boat. I always really wanted to be a dad. That was something that I've always thought of. I wanted to have a family. And I felt like I was too old to achieve that at 35. And I know a lot of women feel that way if they're single at 35 or 40 and they think, oh, I've missed out. But it was interesting to me that men, or at least my husband, felt that way too. Bobby has the option, even now, to go back to work, to do whatever he wants. I said, like, do you have a book that you would like to write? He used to play American football. I'm like, would you like to coach? And he said, no, I just want to be available to my kids. And I think the more men who do that, and the more that equal pay puts women in positions where their heteronormative partners can do that if they happen to have a husband, then there'll be less stigma attached to it. Because currently Bobby still navigates loads of stigma about being a stay-at-home dad. Like comments on Instagram, not that we care. People like, what does he even do? And I think that speaks to the fact that childcare and work at home is traditionally a woman's job, and therefore it's devalued.
And this was the question that I just was really wanting to explore when I started this podcast. Like, tell us the reality, the hard conversations that you have around splitting bills, splitting the household work, because that's obviously a massive conversation. Domestic labor. What are you doing? What's Bobby doing? Like, did you ever have those conversations, given that he's a stay-at-home dad, or did you just say, we'll get a cleaner, forget it?
We didn't have a cleaner or a nanny in the beginning. Again, because I was like, Bobby wants to be a stay-at-home dad. First, we had a cleaner for a while, and then we got robbed. Like, this man crawled in the window in the night while we were home in a skeleton mask. Yeah, and robbed us. I know. And then Bobby caught him and threw him out the window and beat him up and gave him to police, but then police lost him. And we realized like that was maybe a good thing because he was young and we didn't want him to like be in the system, and hopefully he learned a lesson. So we had like a real left-wing approach. And I also thought it was a beautiful sort of irony that he stole my husband's football championship ring, not thinking that like 10 minutes later he was going to be tackled by an American football player. Like, if I'm robbing a house and I'm like, championship American football, then I'm like going to get out of the house ASAP. Yeah. But anyway, he got tackled by my husband. It was fine. But long story short, we stopped having a cleaner then because we just didn't trust anybody, and we just didn't want anyone else having a key. And then when Fred was about 8 months, we got a nanny, and it wasn't a good fit. We thought, oh, we'll get a housekeeper. We'll get this woman who comes 9 to 5, and she can maybe help with some of the laundry or help with some of the cooking, maybe take Fred a bit. But the reality for a lot of people who can afford help is that often your kids don't want to go to those people. And it's heartbreaking because you give them over to this nanny and you think, oh, the nanny, it's a, Mary Poppins professional, the baby's going to love the nanny, go to the nanny. No, like my kids would cry until they would vomit. So I'm sat there thinking, okay, am I going to go in the car and tell some dirty jokes in the basement of a pub while my child is so distressed that they're vomiting? Forget it. So we would send the nanny home and just be like, no, forget it. So then we looked after Fred a lot until we got the babysitter that we have now. She started when Fred was like a year old, maybe 10 months old, and she's a kind of 9 to 5. Every once in a while she'll do evenings if we need her to, or if we're out of town she sleeps over, but she doesn't live with us. And she's awesome, and she's called Miriam, and she was in the house when Fenna was born, in the house. Oh, wow. So she's like the third person to ever meet Fenna. She's great, and my husband stays home and is available too, and we do have a cleaner once a week. So that's how we do it. And I know a lot of people hide that they have a nanny. Like there's some shame in that. But I mean, I think whatever you can do, number one, we're contributing to an economy. I think it's good to employ someone and add a white guilt tax if you can. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's like overpay people who are helping you in your home. Like don't be like the rest of society and undervalue what is really important work. Like this woman's looking after my kids. So yes, she's getting a Christian Dior shopper bag for her birthday. And yes, like I'm gonna look after this woman because I value her contribution to my family. My husband calls it the white guilt tax. Call it what you want in your house. When people lie about it, I just think it paints a picture that is just, it's mean for people who think, how's she doing that all by herself? I can't do it by myself. No one in my position is doing it by themselves. And then every parent, every person looking after the child is a little bit more rested, a little bit more sane. No one's snapping at anybody. I think it's good.
We have a nanny that's with us 3 days a week who we call her auntie. She's like a part of our family at this point. She's been with the baby since they were 4 months old. Did you ever have that conversation with Bobby about, will you do this and I do this, or did it just naturally sort of flow?
I think we naturally fell into division of domestic labor, but we don't call it that. And we should, because it sounds more masculine. Like chores kind of goes hand in hand with the word nagging, and then it seems like you're asking. I hate that. Well, you didn't ask me. You hear that from a lot of partners. It's like, why should I be the manager of the division of domestic labor? I think it's great when it's unified. And I do think we have an understanding. Like Bobby's meant to put petrol in the car, meant to keep the cars clean.
Pays for your parking tickets.
Pays for my parking tickets. Yeah, I just park wherever I want. I just take the ticket off my car and I stick it under his little windshield wiper. And that's a fun prank that we play in the house. And he gets home and his car's in the driveway with the parking ticket. He goes, what? And I go, I don't know. And it opens it. It's clearly mine. But, he has to do that admin. But I do a lot of the other admin, like the physical paying of bills, which is a lot. Like, is the mental load of accounting is a lot. And managing.
Finding the right utility supplier.
Well, he will find the right supplier.
That's good.
But I will have to pay said supplier.
Okay.
Or just set up a direct debit. I mean, it's not that hard.
I feel like you get actually an easy job. But I don't actually think that you do a lot, Catherine.
I'm online paying a lot of invoices. I don't know what they are, but I'm paying them.
Yeah.
And then I do all the laundry, 100% of the laundry.
Oh, really?
He does a lot of the cooking and dishwasher, but I don't load the dishwasher properly, apparently, which is fine.
This was a conscious decision I made very early on, and that led to me not being in charge of the dishwasher.
Fine.
So I thank my past self for that.
Yeah, me too.
How was that for you to navigate being now the breadwinner?
Yeah.
But also you're still so full of, like, you're the food and life support for these babies.
Well, the trick of it was I am still the primary caregiver and the primary breadwinner, because I'm the woman. So like default, I'm their mom. And when I'm not at work, I'm with the kids. And I don't have hobbies. I don't go golfing. I don't go to the gym. I don't like do these things. And I think that's because a mother, in many cases, not every mom, I know a lot of really dedicated CEO moms who have clear boundaries about home and about work. But because my job is so not obvious, like I tell jokes, so often I'm at home, then people just go, well, mom's home, mom will do it. And my kids have gotten used to having me home. And I just work like Father Christmas. I'm like up all day and up all night. I sleep with my kids still, I co-sleep with them, even though you would think. So if a husband was out working, earning the kind of money that I'm earning, and he had a stay-at-home wife, would that husband be coming home from work and sleeping every night with his kids because they're up 4 and 5 times? He wouldn't. Mm-hmm. I do it not because Bobby refuses, but I naturally wake up more easily. I can fall back to sleep more easily. I was breastfeeding for so long. So, it's tricky because it takes a bit of effort from me not to feel resentful that the other men in my industry get to be dads and they can pour a lot more from their cup into their professional life. And I chose to have kids and my kids are a blessing and I wouldn't change it. But every once in a while I'm like, oh, they get to go on tour and stay in hotels, and oh, they don't have to bring a little freezer bag everywhere and be pumping in between all these jobs, and oh, they appear like my husband forgets he has a family by the 9th hole, and I can never really detach from my house yet. He's a stay-at-home dad, but I'm still very much a stay-at-home mom plus working full time.
In those moments where you do take that time for yourself, has there been any practices for you to get there? And what do you do?
I am not a content creator, but I do have a podcast, and we have a gym in the garden where I go, and I've made it my podcast studio. So I'm sort of removed from the house. And I think in a lot of jobs, you are removed from the house. There's an office that you go to, there's a routine, your kids get used to it. You can go to the toilet alone, or you can get a cup of tea if you want. And I think in our jobs, in creative jobs, or people working from home, it is almost useful to have a cafe or any physically separate space. And then I do loads of admin in there and other things. I got my nails done today. It has been a practice. My son is almost 3 and my daughter's 1, and it's taken me this long just to be like, oh, you know what? I can go take a nap in my husband's gym where no one can get me, or I can go get my nails done, or I can go do these things, because I'm at the end of the line where if I don't do that, I have a big tour coming up in 4 months, and I don't want to let my audience down. They've already bought tickets. They really deserve a great show, and I just think enough is enough. My first tour back was when Fred was a baby, and he was on the road with me, and I was up through the night, up at 5:30, exploring Aberdeen with this baby, and then getting on stage and doing a 2-hour show at 8 o'clock at night. Getting off stage, being handed a screaming infant, that was crazy. And it wasn't fair to my family, and it wasn't fair to myself, but chiefly it was not fair to the people who had tickets to see my show. So I would be lying if I said I was great at it, at separating, my time from that. I'm not good at it at all, especially because a lot of my work's at night. and I don't want to miss bedtime, bath time. But I'm getting better. I'm getting better at being like, okay, I need to go to the gym and write, like think of jokes. But I'm not. It's tricky with comedy because no, I don't think an audience wants to hear about my kids for an hour and a half. And I don't have many other references. Like I don't know about the world anymore because I'm not going out. I'm not having interactions where like, oh my gosh, and this guy did this. That doesn't happen outside of my kids. So I do need to give myself permission to have that time that, like you said about content creation, might look like not a job to people, but it's not your fault that content creation is a job now and you pay tax. And it's not my fault that telling dick jokes in Portsmouth is a job and I get paid to do that. It's like, I think that moms, probably the two of us included, just need to forgive themselves for saying like, no, that's my real job. Yeah. And that's what I need to take time to do today.
I want to give it all up most of the time and just focus on the babies. Is there something that you say to yourself when you do not want to get out of bed?
It's important for them to have a mother who is rooted in her own autonomy and achievements and herself. And I think there's probably a compromise to be had in a lot of families. I think if it doesn't work for you and you're traveling too much or away from your kids too much, or you could afford to scale it back for a short period of time, I do think that's probably best for most families to go part-time only if you won't lose your entire career for maybe 2 or 3 years. But if you give it up entirely, those kids are not your whole life. Those kids go through your life. And when they're gone, then what are you left with? Your husband and like no friends and no career. And I have a 15-year-old daughter as well. And I can tell you that she is not interested in me the way she used to be when she was 2. So they don't need you for very long. It's important to keep a sense of yourself because they need you for maybe 9 years. Is the sad truth.
Someone else said that to me actually.
9?
9. Yeah. At that age, they start wanting their own life. They want to see their own friends. Yeah. When you're in the trenches, it just never feels like it's going to ever change. Did you ever take any breaks at all?
Yes.
Yeah.
So when Fred was born nearly 3 years ago, I went back to work 8 days later. Not full time, but I had a gig 8 days later that I needed to film, and I just went back to work. And then I had this big Amazon show called Backstage with Katherine Ryan, and that was a few weeks of long days. And Fred was only 3 weeks old when I did that, or 2 weeks at the beginning, I think. Yeah, very young. Because again, my husband was like, I want to be a stay-at-home dad. And I took him literally when he said that. I was like, great. And I thought he can get on with his son. But Fred turned out to be quite a difficult baby. One of those babies that just is unsettled and has reflux and colic and whatever, eczema, who knows? Fred is Fred. And so then when my daughter came along quite quickly, I was pregnant when Fred was 9 months with my daughter. Then I had to look, again, like reevaluate always the holistic wellness of your entire family. And I had to look at it and go, Bobby and Fred both suffered a lot when I did that. And then I brought them on tour with me and they both hated that. They're very alike, those two. And I said, I can't have another baby and just go back on tour again. I can't do that. So I took about 6 months at least off, 6 to 8 months of very little. Although I did film our family's like reality show when she was 6 or 7 months. But again, that was at home. That was my little creative way of being like, I'll just work from home. And then we had cameras in the house. But I think I slowed down tremendously and I wasn't doing stand-up comedy anymore. So I wasn't going out at night. That was really helpful to my family.
What was that like? Stopping something that you had done for so long?
It was nice, actually. Yeah? It was nice because I felt, I had just done this big tour and released a special, and I thought it was time. I think that we're not all lucky enough to be able to plan when and how you grow your family, but I was lucky that it all sort of made sense with the timing for me to slow down and take a break.
I know so much of my identity was attached to modeling and the advocacy work that I'd done for like a decade. But I think I might have really struggled if I'd got pregnant in the heat of it all.
When I met Bobby again, we were 35 and I had a big project coming up. I was filming something for Netflix called The Duchess, and I knew that I couldn't editorially be pregnant in that. It wouldn't make sense with the story if I was pregnant. So I did wait for that. If I had gotten pregnant in the middle of that, it would have been difficult. And we do have to think about these things on a level that the husbands or the partners don't. The non-pregnant person in the relationship doesn't have to think about that. And then I didn't really have much of a choice. I couldn't wait too long because I had 2 miscarriages back to back. And then I was 38. Now I'm almost 41. So I didn't have the luxury of Naomi Campbelling it. I can't wait any longer. So I did it. I did have a bit of a panic, not a panic I would say, but I was acutely aware of my brand changing, if that makes sense. All of a sudden I had this different life. I had a husband that I also told people I would never have. I really advocated being single and not fitting into the traditional shape of a family. And then that all changed. And then my body changed and my face changed and my circumstances changed. And I did think, well, I've spent a decade really letting people into who I am, and will they accept this very different version of me? And I think that is probably what a lot of moms in any industry feel when they become mothers. They go, well, who am I anymore? What does my husband think of me? What do my friends, like, how can I navigate the world that was understandable to the old me, and now I'm a whole different me? So that was a bit difficult after Fenna.
Was there an extra layer of pressure being somebody that's also in the public eye as well?
Yeah, and I'm not a model, so I don't have to be beautiful in the same way that you do. But certainly I know that people comment on my appearance online. I don't mind, but I know that I'm aware of the fact that I probably get bookings because I look very glamorous. That's part of my thing. And it certainly was my thing in this country when I started doing TV. I was 27 and I was like cute one and the Canadian one, and I get my boobs out once in a while, not fully out, certainly not now, but you know what I mean? That was part of my cachet. Yeah. And then I gained 4 stone with my son, which would be fine if it was like distributed evenly, but it was all in my neck for some reason because I took steroids in that pregnancy. Yeah. So it was just, again, like a brand that I didn't recognize. And I am mentally robust. Like, people can say what they want about me. It really doesn't bother me, but I can't imagine how some of the comments I got would affect like a normal person who maybe has a bit of postnatal anyway, or feels a bit of depression anyway, or feels lonely, or is unsure. Like, in our industry, it is certainly different. And Emily Atack, who I don't really want to speak for, but who I know and love very much, she's expecting a baby shortly. And all people have done from the beginning is comment on what she looks like, how long she's been pregnant for, all these things. And she's a very beautiful actress, known for being beautiful. And it's just people, it's like a TV and film version of someone in the supermarket putting their hand on your belly and being like, you're huge for how far along you are. Oh, you're too small for how far along you are. When you're a mother, people feel like an ownership of your body all of a sudden.
The other day, actually, I got called a MILF for the first time. Going off the back of like things that people say that are stupid, have you found that there was any other prejudice since you became a mum? I know that you had Violet and she was obviously a piece of your public life and people knew about that. But since you became a mum again, did you find that affected your career at all?
I'm luckily that I'm in an echelon now of comedians, and also at a time, like 2024 is very different from 2009 when I had Violet. I would lose jobs then. They could just pass me over and get someone else. And I almost don't blame them because someone else isn't a young single mom with childcare issues, someone else, you know, like I get it, even though ironically I was super reliable because I needed to pay rent and feed a child all on my own every month. So, but it was just easier to book someone else. But now I'm lucky that I'm established enough. I don't think it affected me professionally, except to say that I have to consider my family. Like, I know that the boys are really good dads. I know that. And the women who don't have children, you know, I think they work really hard. I'm not trying to take that away from anyone, but I'm looking after 3 kids and my house, and then trying to be funny, and then trying to go on tour. So in that way, it's been harder. There's been a strain, but I don't think there's like any stigma. People comment about like drinking wine and breastfeeding, or people will say to me, people have always said to me in interviews since my daughter was little, every few months it would crop up. They go, as a sweary comedian, how are you going to explain to your daughter, you know, your trash mouth? Or like, are you worried your daughter will ever find your jokes online? And what will you say to your daughter? And again, they wouldn't ask me that if I was a dad. You know what I mean? No one is like, Frankie Boyle, how will you explain to your son the kind of jokes that you tell? It's like, that's his job. He tells jokes. And so we definitely get a bit of a Madonna complex when we become moms.
The other day, somebody said to me when they were explaining the differences between their 2 sisters that had kids, one of my sisters is really nurturing. She just loves being a mother, and she just got more of those like maternal values, and she's just more maternal. Her other sister, who also has children, works loads. And I remember thinking, being at home 24/7 and taking on that massive amount of work that you have to do, not just childcare, but the cooking, the cleaning, etc. That doesn't make you more maternal than somebody that doesn't do that. Mum guilt can sometimes seep in with that, of what I should be as a mother from what I've been told or what I've been shown. So I wonder what's your approach to that idea, and have you had to protect and defend some of your new ideas?
Well, I think a lot of the women who stay home, unless that is their calling and their dream. And there are homemakers who do an amazing job. I think if I was a full-time homemaker, I would have started a charity foundation. I would be like doing the things. I think that I'm so busy in my head that I would be one of the ones who really loves it. And there are loads of homemakers who don't love it, who are in that situation because they have to be. And in the 60s, they would put all these women on like benzos, on like really, really strong antidepressants and different opiates and things. And these moms were not well. These moms were not maternal. They were miserable. They were tyrants. They were like trapped a lot of the time. They were violent a lot of the time. They were in relationships where they didn't have a choice to do anything else. So I don't know where that comes from, that if you stay at home with your kids, automatically it must be because you love them more than someone who doesn't stay home. I just think that's so crazy. And that's, I think, where a lot of people have a mental health crisis, when they're in a situation that doesn't suit them, but they feel like they have to, or else they're not a good mom. And I think that's so sad. I've always been very clear with Violet, and I think I put the same approaches to the babies. I'm the same mother to them as I was to Violet when she was small, in terms of attachment parenting and co-sleeping and like breastfeed them, and I respond to their needs immediately all the time. I have kind of the same style. But with Violet, I knew what I was doing with comedy, and I knew that there would be a time that she could see all my material online, and I started getting asked the questions like, how will you explain it to your daughter? So I always set out to raise a child who knew that her mother didn't stop being a person because she was her mother. I always thought, she will find it, and I don't mind, and I'm happy to explain to her then and now. I still have to explain it to her. Just the other day, she said, God, she's British, which is like really intimidating, actually. She said, she's like, this cool girl who lives in my house who's British. I'm like, oh my God, she hates me so much. She's so cool. She's like, oh, my mom, my friends found this Rihanna photo of you wearing these trousers. Rihanna released these like pajama pants that have the bum cut out at the top. It's like bum cleavage, but I made our family wear them for Christmas one year as a joke, and I got them for like the grandparents. I got them for everyone. And there's a photo of my husband and me like kissing by the window with our little bums out. And Violet was like, it's so cringe, you have to delete it. And I'm like, no, I will not. She's like, but Mom, my friends have seen it. My friends don't like it. And I was like, well, I was not pushed around by high school girls when I was in high school. And I'm certainly as fuck not going to be pushed around by high school girls now. I said, it is my job to be an entertainer. I'm a comedian. That picture was a joke. I thought it was funny at the time. And I'm not going to adjust my behavior to suit your friends or what you think is cool. And I think that is okay to say. And outside of that job, I think the reason I can stand so strong in that is whatever I'm doing is what I'm doing. At home, I am extremely maternal. I'm very soft and nice at home, and I look after my kids every minute that I'm home, and I am a really good mom. I think I know that, so I don't worry if people challenge it. It doesn't bother me.
That's really important. With your knowing that, like, trusting that judgment and how you feel and how you show up, because at the end of the day, that's not going to be seen by the people on the outside looking in, or just assuming that you're leaving them to go to work, and that means you don't care. They're not going to see all the little moments that you came in for.
Unless you have a reality show, which
I
you
made
do. Sure to have. You can see me in my little top knot, like breastfeeding at 5 a.m. I have commemorated that, so everyone can see it now.
You can watch it on which channel?
It's on W Network or UKTV Play.
Yeah, and you can watch it. And I have watched a few of those episodes, and I absolutely love the realness. And I think it gives you a really good insight into a working mother's life. You have shared in that a couple of times that you feel almost greedy. How did you manage that idea of greed?
I think, well, when we filmed that, Fenna was like 6 months, 7 months old. So at that time, for sure, I felt like it was greedy going back. You asked me before if I thought about quitting. I haven't thought about it enough to get close to doing it. But I think when those babies were small, I definitely got some thoughts like that, because you see all of your privilege that you have and you go, are the babies, do they need to go to private school? Do they need to have this mom who's out telling dick jokes? If I do the math, my husband, who's from my humble small town, and I could sell our house, I could stop working, and we could move our children back to this tiny bungalow, like where we grew up, and they could play outside with all their cousins, and would they be happier having us home? And I think my conclusion was no, because I would go absolutely mad there. I would be living too close to my own parents. I'd be like, oh, Mom, you're so cringe. But it felt greedy for a while, and especially coming from a life of being a single mother, like in a normal job. When I had Violet, I did have to always think about childcare, always think about not running out of money at the end of every month, always feed her before I fed myself, always think about making rent, like just making rent. And those were really difficult times where I had to take any job that was offered to me. So I think I'm really grateful for that experience because it definitely bonded us and it made me stronger. But that's why it feels greedy now, because I was a mom like that. I was a mom without a smartphone. And I think I was a better mom without a smartphone.
It seems like your motivation has continued. The way that you show up for your work has. Obviously, you said it was a little bit challenging when they were younger because it feels like they need you a bit more, which they do. But you're back and you're going to go on tour and you're juggling everything and you look amazing and you're clearly showing up and you're working hard. I know there's a lot of women that are going to be listening to, and parents that are listening to this, that might be on the verge of giving everything up and saying, this is too hard, I can't do it, I don't have the careers that allow me to do that, let's just throw it all in the bin. What would you say to that person?
I think every moment of your life is a season, and I think we tell our children as they're developing toddler tantrums and feelings, you go, this feeling is just right now, and it's okay to be really angry and stomp your feet right now, and maybe you want to shout right now, but this feeling will go away and you're going to feel happy again, you're going to feel sleepy again, you're going to feel safe again, you're not going to be angry forever. We say that to toddlers because we know how to walk toddlers through their feelings, but I think it's fine to say it to yourself, to go, you know how you feel like a dairy cow right now, and nobody loves you, and your husband's taking you for granted, and even that baby hates you. See, he's screaming in your face. That's a season, and if you just look at it as the temporary state that it is, I think you can find the gratitude and the beauty in it more easily. Because let's be honest, if we all had a newborn all the time, 10 years of a newborn would be unsustainable, and it would really grind you down, but it's so short. And I have so much perspective from having a 15-year-old and now a nearly 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I know that these are seasons. And even with your partner, Bobby and I get frustrated with each other right now because we have 2 under 2. And we go, well, this is a season. And I've started waking up every day because my husband says to me, he found this term on TikTok. He says, you're a high performance woman. But then I said to him, I think I'm a regular performance woman and you're a moron. I think all women are high performance women. I think a lot is expected of us. I think we multitask. And so I've had to be mindful about even my relationship. And I've had to look at it and go, okay, am I going to keep score? Or am I going to wake up every day and say, thank you, God, for making me so competent, for making me be able to be up all night with these kids, wake up in the morning with these kids, tidy up after these kids, go to work and earn all the money for the household, and then also have a relationship and also have a little chat with my teenager when she wants to look me in the eye. And thank you, God, for making me such a high performance woman. And I know that my husband has other strengths. He's really helpful and he's really great. And as the children grow older, I think he'll absolutely shine even more. But the baby phase, I hate to sound like traditional, but I just do think a lot more is put on the mom, even when you have the best partner. I think this season is like extra hard for the mom, but it's only a season.
How old was you when you had Violet?
24, or I was 24. I was about to turn 25.
If you think back to yourself then, and you think about how far you've come now,
I know.
What would you say to yourself then?
I would never want to tell her that we were going to be so okay, because I don't know that I would have grafted as hard. I think I needed the fear of, okay, you better figure this out. Because when Violet was born, I could really have gone back to my small town, but everyone expected a lot of me growing up. I think my parents expected a lot of me. I was very proud. I didn't really want to go back and face all my high school girlfriends, a single mom who was 25. I think fear motivated a lot, and that's bad to say. Nobody wants to be fearful, but I was in bad relationships, always. That's something I've really loved to set up for myself, like a little mini challenge. And I didn't know. I think being freelance, it's really important not to know you're going to make it. I still feel it. I still drive past a pub that'll say like staff wanted on the weekends. And I think I could do that. I'll do that. And I did love waitressing. So I think you always have to be hungry. I don't know what I would say to her though. Nothing. I would not want to change anything. I really love the times of struggle. And my only worry with my life now is that the best times were were when Violet was small. They were the worst of times, they were the best of times. But it was so special to be a single mother for a decade, and I want so much to lift stigma off of that. It's harder in a lot of ways, but in a few ways I found it easier. You're never being let down by anyone as long as you don't expect anything Like, I think some women are constantly let down because they're still in love or whatever. I was not. And I knew when I woke up in the morning, everything was on me. All of the money was on me. All of the childcare was on me. All the decisions, though, got to be mine. All my free time was spent with my child. I didn't have to like entertain a man or think about, you know, his view on vaccines. Like, I didn't have to consider anyone else. It was really cool. And we grew up so close. And I'm not as close to the babies as I was to Violet. I'm just not. I love them, of course, but I share them with too many people now. I share them with each other. I share them with my husband, his family, my family. It was just Violet and me. And so being a single mom, and the other thing about being a single mom is people assume somebody left you and you're discarded and you're trash. And there's all these awful stigmas that go with it. And none of that was true. I chose to be a single mom. I loved being a single mom. I just hope that that wasn't the best times ever, because you always want to think the best times are to come. But I'm like, oh God, that little girl is gone now. Now she's upstairs with the Stanley Cup, rolling her eyes at me. You're like, did you get the Taylor Swift tickets?
Yes, I did. Hold on to your little ones really, really, really close until they become teenagers and want to live their own lives.
She's still nice sometimes.
But yeah, I'm sure she is. And I'm sure she's so proud of you.
You would think she'd be proud of me.
Give it a few years.
Yeah.
And she'd be like, actually, Mum, you did all right.
Yeah, you know what? I am conscious of my legacy. And I think that every woman, I'm big on like indigenous psychology and like this idea of ancestral pain and ancestral trauma. And I think everything that you do now, if you are a mother or if you have descendants, it affects 7 generations after you. And also everything you do now affects 7 generations behind you. So I think that everything you do, you are bringing your grandmother with you. You are bringing the women who weren't allowed to work with you, the women who didn't have a choice of like birth control or who their partner was, along with you. We live at a really pivotal moment for women worldwide. So, you know, even if my legacy so far is not impressive to Violet, it might be impressive to like 2 descendants away from Violet. Yeah, I think I'm here doing a thing for a reason.
I love that. Thanks so much, Katherine.
Thank you.
Bye. If you enjoyed that episode or found it interesting, inspiring, or it connected with you in any way, please share it with a friend that you think would love it too. Your support means the absolute world and helps us reach more people with these stories. For more information about our guest or anything else that you've listened to today, be sure to check out the show notes below. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.